Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Vesperisms. It's been a little while since I've been with you, but I'm excited to be here this morning. It is a beautiful rainy day. I am snugly and cozy in my big fuzzy sweater, and I've got a nice candle burning. I am loving the fact that it's fall. I am coming alive again after a long summer. Whew. This is just kind of the way I roll every year. Anyway, I'm sorry I haven't been with you for a little while, but I have some good reasons. As you may know, I was recently nominated for the National Book Award. I'm in the top 10. I didn't even expect that anything like this would ever happen, so I'm shocked and I'm grateful, and I'm just kind of reveling in it. It's really wild. This is a total gift, unexpected, and even if nothing else were to happen after this, it's fantastic. There's nothing that you can really do as, my readers, but, say a prayer and encourage your friends and family to read it. Christmas is around the corner. You can give What the Night Sings as a gift. I don't think that has any bearing on the award at all, but if it's a book that you've enjoyed and you care about, I would love if you would share it with your loved ones. This weekend I had a big weekend. I had the Princeton Book Fair, and I had the opening of my solo show, The Art of What the Night Sings, at the 14th Street Y. So that's up until October 26th. So if you are interested in going to see that, by all means, go and see it while it's up. It is work from the book, including work that didn't make it into the book. So there's a couple of outtakes and other kinds of pieces related to the book. And my next events will not be until October 20th, when I'm in Cincinnati for a couple of events. On October 20th, I'll be at the Books by the Banks Festival. And that evening, I'll be at the Hive Center for Contemplation, a partnership between the Hive and Temple Shalom, giving a book talk. And then the next day, I'll be at the Cincinnati Public Library, Montfort Heights branch, I think it's called, on the 21st. So good stuff coming up. And now let's jump into our topic. So this week's chapter from this book that we've been following, let me get in the camera there. There it is, on Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. This lovely little book that's like $5, and it is so packed with good stuff to consider. So, it just so happens that today's chapter that we're going to be talking about is called Defend Institutions. And today, authors like me from Penguin Random House are sharing why we vote. So if you look up the hashtag #BookTheVote, you'll see answers from your favorite authors. And I'll be putting this up on my Twitter and Facebook as well, this video, and you can share it and subscribe to this little brand new channel and be one of the first, get in on the ground floor. And so I'm going to tell you this week why I vote. So I want to talk about this concept of institutions that Timothy Snyder talks about. So institutions are different from industries. I've always been very deeply skeptical of both industries and institutions. I got married when I was 21, and it only took a minute before I realized that I wanted nothing to do with the wedding industry. I made my own dress. We had the reception at a friend's house. My sister-in-law made my wedding cake. My sister-in-law, Corey Stamper, whose book, Word by Word, you should also read, and I'm sure you have. Anyway, but she's an amazing baker, and she made this incredible hazelnut cake. Unbelievable. I can still taste it 20 years later. I barely accepted any help from anyone. I didn't accept any help from my grandparents who I lived with, which in retrospect was not a good decision. I should have honored them by letting them help me more with my wedding, and I regret that. But anyway, our whole wedding cost about $2,500, and that I do feel good about. And I only wish that Pinterest and Etsy were around at the time. I think we could have done an even more beautiful job. So you guys are so lucky if you're getting married these days that you have so many ideas to pull from. But it was the 90s. What are you going to do? Then when my grandfather died, I was there with my grandmother when she was picking out a coffin at the funeral home. And the way that they used her grief to swindle her out of more money, that woke me up real fast. These industries, use your emotions, especially your sense of honor, to manipulate you into spending more money that has nothing to do with honor, either of the dead or the living, or yourself, or anything. And especially because my grandmother was an elderly woman, a senior citizen, now a widow who would be living on a fixed income. I mean, how dare they? How dare they? Or like the wedding industry, for example. How dare they take you at, when you're starting your life as a couple and have you make like these terrible financial decisions, that are going to start your life in debt? Like, come on. Anyway, but those are industries. Industries come and go, and they morph and they change based on markets and trends. But institutions are more fixed. Things like governments and schools and laws and rights, these are things that we need to protect against markets and trends. Because as we can see now, even though institutions are more permanent than industries, they're not invincible. And I'll show you why. So here's Snyder's little chapter on defending institutions. It's very, very short, so bear with me. It's basically a page long. Defend institutions, chapter 2. It is institutions that help us preserve decency. They need our help as well. Do not speak of our institutions unless you make them yours by acting on their behalf. Institutions do not protect themselves. They fall one after the other unless each is defended from the beginning. So choose an institution you care about, a court, a newspaper, a law, a labor union, and take its side. We tend to assume that institutions will automatically maintain themselves against even the most direct attacks. This was the very mistake that some German Jews made about Hitler and the Nazis after they had formed a government. On February 2nd, 1933, for example, a leading newspaper for German Jews published an editorial expressing this mislaid trust. This is 1933 in a paper by German Jews. Listen. We do not subscribe to the view that Mr. Hitler and his friends, now finally in possession of the power they have long desired, will implement the proposals circulating in Nazi newspapers. They will not suddenly deprive German Jews of their constitutional rights, nor enclose them in ghettos, nor subject them to the jealous and murderous impulses of the mob. They cannot do this because a number of crucial factors hold powers in check, and they clearly do not want to go down that road. When one acts as a European power, the whole atmosphere tends toward ethical reflection upon one's better self and away from revisiting one's earlier oppositional posture. Such was the view of many reasonable people in 1933, just as it is the view of many reasonable people now. The mistake is to assume that rulers who came to power through institutions cannot change or destroy those very institutions, even when that is exactly what they have announced that they will do. Revolutionaries sometimes do intend to destroy all institutions at once. This was the approach of the Russian Bolsheviks. Sometimes institutions are deprived of vitality and function, turned into a simulacrum of what they once were, so that they gird the new order rather than resisting it. This is what the Nazis called Gleichschaltung. Sorry about my German. It took less than a year for the new Nazi order to consolidate. By the end of 1933, Germany had become a one-party state in which all major institutions had been humbled. That November, German authorities held parliamentary elections without opposition and a referendum on an issue where the correct answer was known to confirm the new order. Some German Jews voted as the Nazi leaders wanted them to, in the hope that this gesture of loyalty would bind the new system to them. That was a vain hope. Okay, so if that doesn't put a chill down your spine, I don't know what will. And it shows the importance of defending our institutions, all right? Now, I'll give my little disclaimer here once again that I always give, and I always want you guys to know, that I am anti-partisan. I have never belonged to a political party, and I never will. I'm not on the left, I'm not on the right, I'm not even in the center. I'm certainly no Republican, and I'm certainly no Democrat. And when I hear the words liberal and conservative, I just want to run away. It always confuses me, too, when I get pushback about this. I mean, I've even had to block people on my social media when I tell them that I'm anti-partisan, but I don't understand why I should be forced to choose a side, especially when the dynamics and platforms of those sides are always changing. But I do vote. And here's why. And it's because real people sacrificed for me to have the right to do so. Even before the suffragette movement gave women the right to vote, the only people who could typically vote throughout history or lobby for their rights before there were, modern democracies or before they could lobby for their interests were wealthy landowners, whether they were male or female, but especially male. Now, because of real sacrifices of life and reputation over hundreds and hundreds of years, I now have the right to vote. And I also have the responsibility to vote. In pre-war Germany, as we read, people felt that the institutions were safe from manipulation, but it didn't take much. And it came down to a vote in which the minority party won for Hitler to assume power and then begin to pass laws through coercion that very quickly did strip Jews and others of their rights. There was a complacency about the institutions, and they weren't defended, and so the very definition of rule of law changed. But much as I'm skeptical of industries, in studying both Nazi Germany and Marxism, both, I've become much more grateful for the American institution, the American system of governance. I would never call myself a patriot. Sorry, guys. And I wasn't born in this country anyway, but anyway. And I wouldn't call myself an American exceptionalist or anything like that. But I do recognize that we have very unique freedoms here that other countries, even my favorite countries, even the countries I would rather live in most of the time, don't have these same freedoms. The greatest example is that I'm very, very close to being a free speech absolutist. That has become, in the 20 years that I've been voting, probably the guiding principle for me to vote on. I read platforms very carefully, and you can too. They're available online. You can go and read all the fine print, and it's not even that fine print. It's like, they're pretty short. They're pretty right out there. I pay very careful attention to what politicians say, and even though they almost never follow through on their campaign promises, they do follow through typically on their intentions as regards their use of power. I take them at their word, and I go on the assumption that they will do what they say, especially in regards to how much power the state wants to assume and how much power they want to assume as a leader. There are significant movements right now that just want to burn it all down. And they judge history by where we aren't yet instead of the very good ideas and institutions that have made things truly better than they were in the past. Okay? By any metric. 2018, you'd rather be living in 2018 than 1818 or 1418 or 1918 for that matter. Okay? As a writer of historical fiction, I truly see this as an evolutionary process. Kingdoms rise and fall. And someday America very well might fall as well. But it doesn't have to happen on our watch. And we don't need to be the ones to tear it down. So we're a nation built on power just like any other. Yes, that is true. But we are uniquely a country built on ideas. And they're some of the best ideas. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, equality under the law, jury by your peers, trial by jury by your peers. I mean, these are huge. I can't emphasize how huge these are and how unique and how new. So are we there yet? Are we where we want to be? No. But the principles are there. And we can hold our leaders' feet to the very, very, very hot fire. Let's turn up the heat on our leaders. Yes, because we have the right to do it and we have the responsibility to do it because they are not kings. They are not kings. They are our public servants, whether it's your local mayor or it's the president. They do not hold power unilaterally. They're our public servants. So today, I want to encourage you, #BookTheVote, to check your registration status. Check your voter registration status. Here in the United States, we have the power to change our government's makeup every 2 years, not 4. We don't have to wait 4 years. And in terms of your local government, it's often every year. There are like real laws and real positions that really matter to your local everyday life. If you're dissatisfied with the way things are, don't just watch a bunch of YouTube videos and get upset, and or like, cry into your New York Times headlines. We don't need to burn things down, and we don't need to tear down the institutions. We need to defend them, and we need to hold them to better standards. We need to pay attention to how our potential leaders intend to run these institutions, and we can do it, and we can make things better on our watch. So check your voter registration status, and do intend put voting day on your calendar, and make sure you know where your polling place is and all of that stuff, because we have this beautiful right to do it. All right, thanks guys, and we will talk soon. Lots to catch up on, and I'll do another video soon. Thanks, bye.